yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. Rotary Central, for more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. And Roper's Janitorial, complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time.
This is For the Record with Ort Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you.
For the Record.
Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Ort Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today is Wednesday, the 8th day of May 2019. I trust that everyone had an enjoyable evening, restful one as well. For those of you who are on the roads, whether you're a pedestrian, a bicyclist, a motorcyclist, operating any form of motorized vehicle on the roads, we urge you to observe the rules of the road, be courteous, be careful. Remember, the life you save may be your own. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and, by extension, For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and the management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Ort Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. Our phone lines are always open. There is always someone there waiting to take your calls. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be that beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flo. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. If you don't like to talk on the telephone, email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at candw.ky. WhatsApp us on 925-3261, where we encourage you to send us a text message or leave us a voice note, the contents of which will be played during the course of the show. And, of course, you can follow us on YouTube simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream. Today is Wednesday, and we expect to have MLA Mr. Kenneth Bryan in the studio with us during the course of the show as well. Much to talk about during that period. For those of you who have a birthday today, celebrating a birthday, if you know someone who's celebrating a birthday today, we want to wish you a happy birthday. And if you want us to mention your name or someone's name, just call one of those numbers, give the information to Miss Susan Watson, and we will give a big shout out to that person who's celebrating their birthday today. I want to talk a little bit until our guest gets here about some of our sister overseas territories, and in particular I want to talk about British Virgin Islands. Just to keep you up to speed, I didn't get an opportunity to do so the first part of this week, but I did mention the fact that Mark Vanderpool, I think a member for the 4th District, I believe it is, who had been elected re-elected in the general elections, and then decided that he would submit his resignation even before he was sworn in. There was no speaker to accept that resignation, of course, and it was then handled by the clerk. When the speaker was appointed, the speaker then accepted that letter, and as a result refused to swear him in. There were court proceedings in relation to that, and there was a court ruling that said that basically the member could not resign his seat because he had not yet been sworn in, and has given that judge has given instructions to the Speaker of the British Virgin Islands Legislative Assembly to swear that member in. That has not taken place yet. I don't think that the BVI legislature is sitting at the moment, but that has not taken place. But even bigger than that, there's an article on BVI Platinum News, and I want you to listen to this, because here we have a freshman premier. First time he's being premier of the British Virgin Islands, a gentleman by the name of Andrew Fahey. And he has made political promises, just like all politicians do. And he has started out by inviting the UN Decolonization Committee to observe the constitutional review process in the British Virgin Islands. Now, the constitutional review process was to begin, but of course in 2017, BVI was unfortunately hit by hurricanes, and that was all delayed. So he has now invited them. Now, some of you may not even know that there was a Caribbean regional seminar on decolonization, which took place recently in Grenada. I'm not sure whether or not anyone from the Cayman Islands attended that. We have a tendency to want to lean far away from the UN Decolonization Committee, but yet at the same time, that committee is really the spokesperson of sorts for those countries, or those entities, those territories that are still under colonial rule. They are the spokespersons in the United Nations Assembly. And here in the Cayman Islands, we talk about United Kingdom government overreach, and we try to address it through the United Kingdom, but at the same time, we have a way to redress that by way of the United Nations through the Decolonization Committee. But yet we here in the Cayman Islands have a tendency to lean away from them. So I'm going to read this article here, and it says, Premier Honorable Andrew Fahey has invited the United Nations Special Committee on Decolonization, I think it's called Committee of 24, to the territory to observe the deliberations on constitutional review and to facilitate an education campaign on self-determination. Again, I say, a freshman premier, first time being the premier of the British Virgin Islands, and he is already talking about educating his people about the whole concept of self-determination. The article goes on to say, this was done during the recently held Caribbean Regional Seminar on Decolonization, which the Premier attended in Grenada. The Special Committee on Decolonization is a subsidiary organ of the General Assembly created to monitor implementation of the decolonization process. According to a statement on the seminar from the committee, the Premier of the British Virgin Islands said the relationship between that territory and the United Kingdom has become increasingly strained as the administering power has become more intrusive in the areas of governance constitutionally delegated to the territorial government. The statement went on to quote Premier Honorable Fahey as saying, "Under my leadership, things will change," as he pledged close cooperation with the United Nations. He urged the Special Committee to facilitate a self-governance assessment of the territory, dispatch a visiting mission facilitate an education campaign on self-determination, and sit as an official observer of public deliberations during the next constitutional review, the statement read. In a statement via social media, Honorable Fahy stated, "I had a most productive meeting on behalf of the BVI with Her Excellency Ambassador Keisha A. McGuire, Chair of the United Nations Special Committee on Decolonization and Permanent Representative of Grenada to the United Nations. The meeting with our regional counterparts on other non-self-governing territories from the Caribbean and the Pacific region," and again I querying whether or not Cayman attended that meeting. So again, I'll start reading. "The meeting with our regional counterparts on other non-self-governing territories from the Caribbean and Pacific region, as well as members of the Special Committee of the United Nations, were all very productive. The meeting welcomed the update provided on the territories, that is the BVI, progress, and noted our development objectives. Our BVI delegation performed with distinction at the stated UN meeting," he continued. "BVI Platinum News was unable to reach the Premier to ascertain the timetable for the constitutional review given the invitation to the committee. Back in September 2018, he had stated that he wants the constitutional review to be held after the general elections, which was held in February. And the article goes on to say, just like I said, a constitutional review of the BVI was due in 2017. However, this was interrupted by the 2017 disaster. So here we have a leader of an overseas territory that is administered, or a colony that is administered by the United Nations, extending an invitation to the Decolonization Committee of the United Nations to observe, to educate the people of the British Virgin Islands on the issue of self-determination. Here's a man who made a promise before the elections. That promise was made in September of 2018. Elections were held in February of 2019. His party took the largest number of seats. He became the premier, and here he is starting to keep his promise already. We have heard discussions here in the Cayman Islands. There are persons like Mr. Billy Adam, for instance, who talks, and also Mr. Warren, who speak repeatedly about the UN Decolonization Committee. You have heard me talk about it as well. We have heard me talk about in the 70s when a man by the name of Vinabubu came to the Cayman Islands, and how we shuttled him back off from the Cayman Islands because at that time the politicians were quite vehement about their desire, maybe I should say theirs, maybe not ours, because whether or not they consulted the people of the Cayman Islands is another question, to remain British, to remain a colony. And so we hear people talking about it here again in the Cayman Islands these days. But how far, the question is, how far are we willing to go with it? When will we ask the Decolonization Committee to come to the Cayman Islands to talk, to educate? And when I say that not someone from the private sector or some political entity outside of government inviting them to come, but the government of the Cayman Islands doing so out of respect for the people of the Cayman Islands and the desire of many people of the Cayman Islands to know more about the concept of self-determination and to be able to determine, to look at our current situation, how we operate, what our Constitution says, and to determine whether or not we are really exercising the right of self-determination under the present and current circumstances. And if you listen to what people are saying when we talk about the overreach of the United Kingdom, it is quite obvious. It is quite obvious that the current situation is not what is optimal for the Cayman Islands. We have a caller. We're going to go take a commercial break first. Caller, please hang in there. Quick commercial break because we've reached 15 minutes. I've talked for 15 minutes. Take that break and we will take your call. So please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series, sponsored by Cayman National Bank. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs. The Cayman Islands, he hath founded it upon the seas. Gwendolyn Lily Bush, 1920 to 1999. Miss Gwen was referred to by Colin Panton as the heart of Pan Carib Agencies, which was dedicated to helping Caymanian seamen get berths with various shipping lines and helping them through the necessary paperwork and processing, from reminding the family what a seaman would need to pack and writing the letters he needed to carry with him, to informing a bereaved family that their father, husband, and son had been lost at sea. Miss Gwen provided tireless service and emotional and moral comfort to Caymanian seamen and their families for almost 3 decades. They were her boys, and over the years, they built her 2 homes. Nearly 400 seamen attended her funeral, and her headstone, provided by the Cayman Islands Seamen, reads, "She was a seafarer at heart."
Radio Cayman's historical facts vignettes are proudly brought to you by Cayman National, with branches on all 3 Cayman Islands. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
Circle of Love Women's Ministry and DCFS would like to thank our gold sponsors for their support of the annual Child Month Breakfast on May 11, 2019. Cayman National Bank, Persona Events, Wendy's, Book Nook, Marriott Beach Resort, Atlantic Kids, Foster's Food Fair, and Cayman Islands Monetary Authority. Thank you, gold sponsors, for empowering, impacting, and encouraging the future of the Cayman Islands. For more information on the Child Month Breakfast or to be a sponsor, contact Shanda Hunter at 922-3229.
Since March 2004, West Bay Pharmacy has kept their doors open to the local communities, even before, during, and after Hurricane Ivan. At West Bay Pharmacy, our staff provides so much more than pharmaceutical excellence. From the moment you walk through our doors to completing your cash out, our staff will have put your healthcare concerns at ease. We would like to take this moment to thank our loyal friends and customers. To us at West Bay Pharmacy, our patients are our primary concern. We provide thorough background checks and precise calculations to ensure your medical safety. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing West Bay Pharmacy, where we care about your health.
They say cleaning your house never killed anyone, but why take chances? Spend your time doing what you love and leave the rest to Roper's Janitorial. Complete janitorial service for commercial and residential with 24-hour emergency service. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Take back your life and get the job done right the first time. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511.
Why my wife always asking if I'm in a rush when she's the one always making us late?
Might as well say, yeah, I'm in a rush and go buy the new Toyota Rush you've been talking about. Cause they on sale this month. Dal teacher.
The super special spring SUV sale at Vant Motors. Save up to $4,400 with SUVs starting at only $23,500, like the 7-seater Toyota Rush. Save money, get cash back, or use the discount to upgrade features on the SUV of your choice, including the Toyota RAV4, the Fortuner, the Rush, or the Ford EcoSport. It's our super special spring SUV sale only at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Ort Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're going straight to the phone lines as promised. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Thanks for waiting. Good morning, caller.
I was listening to what you were saying about things being devolved in the UK and administering power interfering with those things more and more.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you would be so kind to write His Excellency the Governor and ask him whether in his recent interview with the Compass, in which he also referred to devolved matters,
mm-hmm.
If he would contact the Attorney General in the UK and have the FCO confirm on his letterhead that we do in fact have devolved powers.
Okay, I think the UK, the Minister for the Overseas Territories, has also made a similar statement to that effect, pointing out to the UK Parliament that there are certain powers that have been devolved to the overseas territories and to elected officials there, and their reluctance to get involved in those things.
Oh yes, I'm not disputing that those things occurred.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's just that in a court of law,
mm-hmm.
Those things are going to be interpreted as that person's comments, or perhaps them misspeaking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I want it in an official form for them to say that, because I don't see anywhere in our Constitution where it says that we have devolved powers.
But you don't think that the contents of the Constitution, when it speaks to certain things that the legislature can do, that ministers can do, that isn't in itself. It's more than devolved. Then it's actually in black and white.
Absolutely not. As long as we have Section 80,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Section 81,
mm-hmm.
and Section 125 in the Constitution,
okay,
they can undo all of that.
True, I agree. Yeah.
So what that means is the definition of devolved means that it can't be undone.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The delegated means that it can be undone. Right? And so we have a ruling in the court right now with the Chief Justice on a matter that we think belongs to us, meaning the right to define marriage, because that's what the European Court of Human Rights says, that each country has the power to define what marriage means.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chief Justice is saying that the margin of appreciation is the technical term they use to say who has the right to define marriage. The Chief Justice is saying that power lies with the UK.
Okay.
So I would like on his letterhead,
mm-hmm.
him telling us that we have that with the FCO in their AGs concurring with that view.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I'll feel happy with that.
Yep. Caller, were you aware of this UN decolonization committee meeting that was taking place in Grenada, and are you aware whether or not anyone from the Cayman Islands attended?
To my knowledge, no one attended, but I can't say that with certainty.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I don't know if you picked up on the first part of the show when I read from an article pointing out that the Premier of the British Virgin Islands has invited the UN Decolonization Committee to observe the deliberations on constitutional review and also to facilitate an education campaign on self-determination. I don't know if you heard that. Any comments on that?
Well, I think that those things should take place. Mm-hmm. The reason why the administering powers don't want it to take place is in the territories, mm-hmm. because that's evidence of how they view the whole process, and that they don't want us to be further educated on these matters.
Yeah.
What I would say is that, as my understanding is, in terms of inviting the UN to a territory, in the context of the Cayman Islands, and I'm sure that it's perhaps true in the other overseas territories, is that the only ones who can invite the UN to host such a meeting in their territory is that the government would have to write the governor, asking the governor to request that the UN host, invite the UN to host a meeting here, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. or the UK mission to the UN can do so, but other than that, I don't think anyone else has the power to officially invite them.
Well, I think
we can invite them,
uh-huh.
but you see, when there was a discussion on not on your show, but the previous talk today, years back when it was I think the now Speaker of the House wrote a letter about the UN not coming here because mm-hmm. they had decided to.
And
see,
that was during when Stuart Jack was governor. I think, caller, the process is, because the United Kingdom is the administering power, that it is a formality for the decolonization to contact the United Kingdom. And the instance that you're talking about, I do know that the then governor, Stuart Jack, the leader of government business or premier at that point in time, was contacted, pointed out that this committee had made overtures to want to come to the Cayman Islands. Didn't seem as if the British government was in favor of it, but basically left it up to us, but at the same time sort of like nudging us to basically say no to it, because the British government does not feel that in any way it has any responsibility or that they're answerable to the Decolonization Committee. That's why they treat them the way that they do.
Right, but what we need to make sure that the public understands is that the UK does in fact have an obligation under mm-hmm. Article 73B
of the UN Charter. Yes,
to inform us of these matters,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're in a situation where the person who is responsible for informing us on these matters are hostile towards our education on these matters.
Yep.
And that is why I take issue with what I hear the governor saying in the Compass, because it suggests to me that they're not being genuine. And so if they're not going to put it down in some official way, mm-hmm. then the governor either needs to stop saying that and tell the truth to the public about the fact that we have nothing more than delegated powers mm-hmm. which can be taken back.
Right. Good point, caller. I want to thank you very much for that. We have reached that time check for 8 o'clock news. When we return, our conversation with MLA, Mr. Kenneth Bryan, who represents The constituency of Georgetown Central in our legislature will begin, so please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back immediately after the 8 o'clock news.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. And studio time now by Price Right is 7:59.
Price Right is Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore, making your dollar go further with huge savings and no membership fees. Get more of the things you use every day at the right price. But it's not just grocery and health and beauty. Price Right has a full range of products from office to automotive, patio furnishings to kitchen appliances, and even electronics. And since warehouse prices mean savings for you, everything is priced right at Price Right, Grand Cayman's warehouse shopping superstore.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.
Access. Information. Your community. News and information. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. 11 students from across Cayman's public and private schools shine at the 12th Annual Butterfield Young Musician of the Year Awards. More from Radio Cayman's Shanda Gallego.
This year's Butterfield Young Musician of the Year is cellist Dequan Smith of John Gray High School. He won over the judges and thrilled a packed audience Saturday evening with his performances. Runner-up went to pianist and A-level student at St. Ignatius Catholic School, Cameron Gilson. Returning international judges Stephanie Williams and Dr. Catherine Rand, along with a new international judge, Lori Burnett, undertook the difficult task of evaluating each performance by the talented finalists. Each of the 11 competitors received a trophy for their participation on reaching the finals for the 2019 competition. The first place winner and runner-up also received trophies and cash awards, courtesy of Butterfield. Shanda Gallego, Radio Cayman News.
Hundreds of students led Prospect Primary School Hall on Friday for their annual Inter-School Career Fair. Details from CIGTV's Donna Bush.
About 12 public and private sector companies and departments were on hand to tell the students about the different career options. Reception-aged children attended the event dressed in various career apparel, showing what they desire to become at this age. Now, the goal of the annual event is that it will be an overall benefit to the students, as school counselor Mila Johnson explains.
I was just overwhelmed by the amount of participants that showed up and just interacted with the children, because I think that was the best part, the interaction. The kids were excited to ask questions and learn new things, and I think it helped that the participants brought like different prizes and things like that. Gone are the days of us just being doctors and lawyers. I think it's important for us to explore what different careers are out there.
And students from Red Bay, Savannah, Bordentown, Georgetown, and John A. Cumber primary schools were all invited to be part of the Prospect Primary Career Day.
And YMCA of the Cayman Islands launches a 10-week annual fundraising campaign to support its youth character-building programs.
And the funds raised are used for financial assistance for all segments of the community to attend the Y Day Camp, the extended after-school program, team leadership, and participation in the YMC Ropes Challenge course and team leaders and all sorts of different programs that the Y has.
Rhonda Kelly tells Radio Cayman the Y relies on community support each year to help continue its mission to positively impact youth in the community, regardless of their financial circumstances. For more information about the YMCA Cayman Islands Caring Campaign, you can log on to ymcacayman.ky or email info@ymcacayman.ky. Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC, who will take us out of the newscast. I'm Carsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News with David Austin. Russia, France and China have all reiterated their support for the Iran nuclear deal after Tehran said it was partially suspending implementation of the agreement. On the first anniversary of the U.S. withdrawal from the 2015 deal, the Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said his country would immediately stop its sales of enriched uranium, allowing it to build up its stockpile. A Christian woman who spent 8 years on death row in Pakistan after being convicted of blasphemy has finally left the country. Asia Bibi's lawyer has told the BBC she's now in Canada. Her acquittal by Pakistan's Supreme Court last year led to violent protests. At least 9 people have been killed and 25 wounded in a suspected suicide blast at a Sufi shrine in the Pakistani city of Lahore. A faction of the Pakistani Taliban said it had carried out the attack. Afghan special forces have exchanged fire with militants who stormed a building in Kabul after triggering a huge blast. Officials said the gunmen had entered the office of an NGO, Counterpart International. Police say they've rescued more than 150 people. South Africans are voting in a general election, the 6th since the end of white minority rule. They're likely to be the toughest so far for the African National Congress, the party that's governed the country for the past 25 years. BBC News.
Access. Information. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
At Kirk's Home Center, we can make your life much better. We got it all together. We got a great deal in store for you.
This week at Kirk Home Center, get your green thumb going with 8-inch square planter pots starting at $9.49, and keep plants blooming with a half-gallon watering can for $4.69, and grass growing with an 8-pattern sprinkler for $9.99. Cook rice perfect every time with a 16-cup rice cooker from Black & Decker for $34.99, and save on 12-volt cordless drills from Bosch for $259.99.
Kirk's Home Center, we got a great deal in store for you.
Did you know that recycling collection containers are located island-wide on Grand Cayman? The Department of Environmental Health's program is an integral part of DEH's waste management responsibility in the Cayman Islands. Start your recycling program at home today. Put your type 1 and 2 plastics in appropriate DEH recycling containers at all Foster's supermarkets, Kirk Market, or Hurley's Grand Harbor. Please keep the Cayman Islands clean. Reduce, reuse, and recycle. For more information about recycling, go to www.deh.gov.ky.
Support our port, support our tourism.
Did you know that since day one, government has insisted on strategies for the cruise berthing facility that are both fiscally and environmentally responsible? No damage to 7 Mile Beach, no upland development, no government loans or guarantees.
Looking forward, looking bright.
Learn more and spread the word.
Support our port, support our tourism.
Moms everywhere, Advance Automotive salutes you. We know you have the hardest job in the world, so we want to introduce you to the 2019 Chevrolet Traverse, the stylish 7 or 8-seater SUV, voted Best Family Car 2018. Partnering with Saxon, take advantage of our new 1-2-3 offer. 1 year free insurance, 2 years free servicing, and 3 years free licensing, freeing up more cash to pamper yourself this Mother's Day. Moms everywhere, you rock. Visit the showroom on Owen Roberts Drive or visit AdvancedChevrolet.com to start enjoying your new Traverse. Who runs the world? Mums.
Healthcare Pharmacy cares about your health and your mom this Mother's Day with the largest collection of greeting cards, picture frames, photo albums, gift boxes, gift bags, and inspirational quotes from Hallmark and Shoebox. You'll find the perfect card and that perfect for mom gift, like perfume and bath sets at Healthcare Pharmacy in Governor Square and Grand Harbor. Healthcare Pharmacy in Grand Harbor will be open on Mother's Day from 10 to 6 for any last-minute shopping.
Good morning. Time now for the latest weather report. Current temperature is 82 degrees. Relative humidity is 89%. Barometric pressure 29.92 inches and rising. The wind is northwest at 3 knots. Overnight low temperature was 76. Synopsis indicate light southeasterly winds and slight seas will continue across the Cayman area for the next 24 hours due to a weak pressure gradient over the northwest Caribbean. Radar images show isolated showers in and around the Cayman area moving towards the west. Now the forecast for today and tonight, calling for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of showers. Temperatures will be in the mid to upper 80s today and fall to the mid to upper 70s tonight. Winds will be east to southeast at 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be slight with wave heights of 1 to 3 feet. High tide will be this morning at 11:16, low tide this evening at 5:52. The sun will set this evening at 6:49 and will rise tomorrow morning at 5:54. And the outlook is calling for similar weather conditions through Friday morning. Once again, we take a look at what's happening on our roads. Coming from the east, extra patience needed this morning as traffic is bumper to bumper busy traffic on Shamrock Road and Linford Pearson Highway. Steady traffic on Huldah Avenue, Thomas Russell Way, traffic moving along moderately. And some sections of Cool Road busy, other sections steady traffic. Coming from the West Bay four-way stop, traffic is moderate in both directions, as well as Eastern Avenue and Godfrey Nixon Way. There was slow-moving traffic on North Sound Road coming from the Butterfield roundabout. On Edward Street in downtown Georgetown, traffic is moderate. And looking at what's happening on Shedden Road, traffic flowing pretty good in and out of Georgetown. That's the very latest on your traffic. Join us again at about 10 minutes after 12. We'll update you traffic-wise. 10-2 on the steering wheel, and have a good morning.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record with Orit Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'll go straight away to a gentleman who needs no introduction, and he's on For the Record every other Wednesday. MLA Mr. Kenneth Bryan, who represents Georgetown Central in our Legislative Assembly. Mr. Bryan, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
And thank you, O.C., and good morning to you as well, and to Miss Susan in the back. Good morning. Good morning to your listening and viewing audience across the Cayman Islands and across the world, particularly to Georgetown Central and my lovely Cayman Brackers and Little Caymaners, if I should say that. Special good morning to you. I am glad to be back on the show like I every other Wednesday. Missed you last 2 weeks ago. You were off island. Congratulations on your win, by the way.
It wasn't really a win.
It was a win. I think it was a win. I mean, it's a serious accomplishment. You take pride in keeping yourself in shape and to go off and show them how our seniors still keep themselves in shape and come from that good old seaman blood was a good thing, particularly because that was the location key known for the boating industry. So it was you should have taken the opportunity to say, yeah, that's good seaman blood, so you can self-promote. But that being said, it's a pleasure to be here. A lot of things have happened since you were away. Some things to talk about in respect to the previous sitting of the Legislative Assembly. Some things that are a concern for myself, and I'm quite sure there's a number of things the listening audience may want to ask. Try to get through a few topics first and then open up the lines for the people of the Cayman Islands to interact with their representative in any way they feel fit.
All right, go right ahead. Let's start.
Well, as you know, in the last sitting of the House, we had the ever controversial same-sex debate, and I think I'm not sure if that has been flushed out enough, but if necessary to get down to that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to address them. But I think I've addressed them much already in respect to what my position is on the matter, and but there's some other things that happen in that sitting of the House that I am not happy with, that are not been addressed, and some of them were as you remember, I brought a pension motion over a year now, and I've asked for an update as to where the government is on framing that bill and bringing it to the House for it to be passed. I previously brought a motion, and that motion was to increase the withdrawal amounts for persons to pay off their homes, so they can have one more bill taken off their head, particularly in these times where cost of living is increasing so much, and there's such a large pace stagnation for many Caymanians, where costs going up but no increase in pay. So I thought this would be a good way to help assist. And the government all agreed, and every member of the House unanimously voted in favor of this motion. But yet still, this is now, I think, if I'm correct, the 5th sitting of the House since the motion has been passed, and the government has yet to bring it. Now, so much so they're not even willing to answer the question that is put before them in respect to an update. It's disappointing because, in my view, if you've agreed to do something, you need to get it done. I think strategically, what they're doing now is not even wanting to answer for an update, because I suspected they weren't bringing the bill. So at the very least, give me an update so I can let the people of the country know what is transpiring, because there's a number of Caymanians across the country who are waiting for this bill to be passed so they can use that opportunity to get rid of that one major headache of a mortgage by using their pension to pay it off.
And this update, you requested that in a form of a
question, yes. And I have the question before me. And it states, can the Honourable Minister state whether or not the government will be introducing a bill to amend the National Pensions Law 2012 revision to allow Caymanians to withdraw larger sums of money for the purpose of early repayment to their mortgages? And it was dated April 2019. From when I submitted the question, actually the exact date would be the 20th of the 3rd, 2019. So they've had enough time and opportunity to get the relative answer to that question. But what it shows me is that they don't have an interest of letting the people know what's happening with that, particularly all of those Caymanians who are waiting for this law change. I've had numerous calls from Borden Town to East End to West Bay to even Kimmanbrack trying to find out about this, because I was the mover of the motion. And I still have no answers for the people of this country, because the government is the majority and they have the last say. I mean, if you don't want to bring the motion, you shouldn't have supported it in the first place. But they did, and they all agreed to it. And again, this is an example of the government not following through with their commitments. And it doesn't bode well, not only for this particular topic, but it shows an example of whether we can trust them when they say they're going to do something, even when they vote on the floor of the House. So I'm concerned about that, and I hope that the government is listening, which I suspect they always do, that the people are waiting on what is going to happen with that when you've promised that you would agree to it. Another question that I submitted on the 20th of April 2019, before the sitting of the House, was to apologies, give me a quick second here. Yes, to the Honourable Premier, because he's the Minister in charge of Human Resources, Immigration and Community Affairs. And the question was, can the Honourable Minister provide an update on the status of the Standards in Public Life 2014 and Advisory District Council's Law 2011? Two predominant laws that are very vital to the governance and good governance of this country. Again, they didn't answer that question either. They had enough time to address the question, because I try my best to put the question in way before the sitting of the House, because sometimes the normal answer is, well, we didn't have time to address it. So there's no excuses in that respect. You had loads of time. And the fact that they've chosen not to answer it yet again shows that they have no interest. I can only take that assumption that they have no interest in addressing the problem. Standards in Public Life law is probably one of the most vital laws to good governance in this country, and it seems as if this administration, an administration that banked on their transparency and being against corruption, this law, which was promoted by themselves, is the key law to keeping the transparency and good governance in this country. And they've yet to bring it in. And they can only draw conclusions or negative conclusions as to why they haven't done that. No update, nothing in the strategic policy statement, which I have here with me now. I've perused it. I've made it my notifications on it. Nothing in it at all. What is the story? And I think this is something that the people of this country should be concerned about, because if you have an administration who doesn't want to bring in such a significant piece of legislation that keeps a watchful eye and put in recommendations and strategies and structures to keep governments under a watchful eye and they don't want to bring it in, you have to ask yourself the question, why? And I'll leave that to the public to come to their own conclusions.
Now, in relation to these questions that you posed, did they actually, were you able to pose those questions? They were accepted by the speaker,
Yes,
went to the ministers or to the ministries for responses, and they haven't yet responded. Is that the case?
That is the case.
Okay.
They have, and this is not the first time these questions have gone in.
Now, what happens? How is there a waiting game that is being played? How long
Excuse me.
do those questions that you have posed? How long do they remain? I use this word loosely, fertile, before they lose their effect and you have to resubmit or whatever.
Well, to be honest with you, Mr. Corner, I've never known how long it takes because I never wait for that to find out. If I don't get the answer this time, I'm going to resubmit it the next time, and I'm going to continue to submit it until the answer. And what it does, even though I may not get an answer to the matter, what it does is at least the public gets an opportunity to examine the fact that they're not answering it or not even attempting to answer it, and they can draw their own conclusions from that. So though the process may seem, you're not going to get anywhere, Kenneth, but it's vital for them to see themselves, this inaction of the administration, and what that inaction actually means. So like say, for instance, as soon as I've heard the announcement of the next official date, I'll resubmit it the same day. So this question will come up again, and I will continue to pound it because of the importance of it. So that's another one. I did get some interesting information in respect to the District Council's law. The law has been passed, and I want to confirm with the Attorney General's office in respect to a law being passed but not enacted. And that blows my mind. And I think maybe coming from a layman's term or average person, how can you have a law and not have it enacted? It just blows my mind. What's the point of the law? But yes,
this is not the original piece of legislation, is it?
Well, the one that is currently been passed. I know that I'll be transparent to all the details, where the Premier has publicly said about a year and a half ago that they're concerned about how the structure of it is, and there might be some amendments and the like. But how long are we going to wait? I think that they're playing the waiting game, where you push it all the way to the end of the administration, then you announce right before election, oh, yes, we're going to make the changes to it and bring it in play, but yet still you weren't subject to those security measures to keep the watchful eye on you. So you're going to get through this whole 4 years not being held to those standards in public life. I think we talk about concerns of corruption or bad practices in the governance of our country through the various different entities like representatives in the LA, board members and chairmen and the like. This is the one piece of legislation that obligates them to act in a particular way that is safe and secure for the people of this country, to make sure that we're governed properly. And if they don't want to enact it throughout this 4-year period, it only can tell me one thing, and I am concerned, and I would like the public to think about that. I'm not going to suggest what it is. I want you to think for yourself, what could be the reason? What logical reason could this administration have for not wanting to address it? And if there is a logical reason, why don't you answer the question to what the logical reason is? With those facts in mind, I think we can draw some conclusions for ourselves as to that. But moving on to the District Council, which we all know is a very important piece of legislation as well. I wanted to confirm whether it was enacted or not. And the AG did answer the question and said the District Council's law is not in effect, which is disappointing, to be honest with you, because the things within the District Council that allows us certain benefits and direct representation through people within each constituency is not there. So no matter how pleased we are with laws, what we see in many administrations is we pass all of these happy-go-lucky legislation that we think would be good for the good governance of the country, but they go on the back burner or they catch dust on the shelf somewhere. So can this administration and its leader, I apologize, not trying to particularly pick on anybody, but I have to go based on the history, for many decades have prided themselves on transparency, on the fact of good governance, and they introduce or they sell the idea of this introduction of these pieces of legislation to make sure that we're a good governing society. But then they put them all on back burners and never put them into effect. What's the point? So you basically are deceiving the people of this country, because by the looks of it, it doesn't seem that they had any intention of bringing this legislation. But I think I'm beating my gums, and not to expand much more, but every time this happens, I'm going to bring it up so that people can see the repetitive behavior, because repetition tells you a lot about the character of the administration, how they behave. I don't think that they're all members of this administration that are not of the view to push these pieces of legislation, but it's the role of the senior members of this administration to bring it forward. So let's see what will happen, but those are some of the concerns. There was another question, but I know that we might have to go to a break now.
Yeah, well, we're going to go to a break soon, but what I'd like to share with the listening and viewing audience, and you spoke about it, is an article from the Caymanian Compass, and that was Tad Stoner wrote that in September the 14th, 2017, and it speaks about Constitutional Commission renews call for advisory district councils. And in plotting the history of the legislation, Tad Stoner wrote then, in 2011, then Premier Mkiva Bush introduced legislation to create advisory councils. The effort fell flat in the face of opposition claims that the groups would serve only as political support for Mr. Bush's United Democratic Party. The legislation at the time stalled after Alden McLaughlin, leader of the People's Progressive Movement, now called the Progressives, refused to support the bill, preventing PPM members from accepting council seats. In the Progressives' 2017 manifesto released before the May general elections, the party stated that it would be making the necessary, quote, the necessary amendments to the advisory district councils law to ensure that a district council is established in each electoral district to enable voters to interface directly with their elected representatives. According to the manifesto, each council would be given an annual budget for which they will present audited financials to fix the small irritants in their communities that matter most to them and which may be overlooked by certain government or simply by central governments or simply take too long to correct. District MLAs would be required to attend quarterly meetings of their respective advisory district councils to address their concerns, advise them of government's plans and policies, and get feedback from the community, the manifesto continued. Currently, the only advisory district council that meets regularly is the Northside Council. So that article
that said a mouthful, because what that just did was saying that they recognize the importance of it. They also said they're committed to bring it in place and make the amendments, and they haven't done so. Why? The other factor, and I quickly say this before you go to break, is that they said the purposes of budgets and the like is to help the representatives in each constituency to do things that central government forget. That's exactly the position that I'm in. There's things I want to do in my constituency. I can't get an allocation of budget because I have no access to central government budget. Therefore, I can't do anything. And I think it's a strategic move by this administration not to bring it into law so that all members who are not a part of the administration looks like they can't get anything done. And this is the types of behavior that this administration does to undermine.
But you do recognize that the funding that would go to the advisory district councils may not necessarily be accessible by you.
Of course not. Of course not. But a district council would address those problems, and we would fight for the necessary things that need to be addressed in the constituency. For example, the Georgetown Central Park that needs to be done, that's where you find the money from. But we can't get access to it because they won't bring the law in.
Okay, folks, please stay tuned for the record with MLA. Mr. Kenneth Bryan will continue after this short commercial break.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes, Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
They say cleaning your house never killed anyone, but why take chances? Spend your time doing what you love and leave the rest to Roper's Janitorial. Complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential with 24-hour emergency service. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Take back your life and get the job done right the first time. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record.
This is For the Record with Ort Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, MLA Mr. Kenneth Bryan. He's talking about some of the matters that came up in the Legislative Assembly at its last meeting. Mr. Bryan.
Yes, Mr. O'Connor. Mr. Connor, the only other one that that was of concern for me is that I submitted a question in respect to the overseas territories and why the government did not submit an answer to the Foreign Affairs Committee in respect to the two major issues, which was same-sex marriage and belongership. Unfortunately, the question did not get out and was not allowed. So I don't want to get into the reasoning behind that, but that another situation that we can't get an answer to, because up to this day, we are not aware as to the reasons why this administration did not submit answers to how we feel about the Foreign Affairs Committee's report on belongership, basically trying to mandate that UK nationals be allowed to vote once they're residents in this country. And it's concerning. I think everybody in this country right now should be concerned why the government till this day has not said what is its position on behalf of the people of this country as to letting the UK know that we are not in approval of allowing UK residents to vote in our election or run for office, because it changes the landscape of this country totally. But yet we still haven't had a position on that. I think we've had much discussion on the same-sex marriage, and the motion that was brought to the Honourable House by the elected member from East End gave an opportunity for everybody to express their thoughts on the topic of same-sex marriage. So at the very least, the country knows what each member's feelings are on it, at least those who spoke to the motion. And we had a number of persons who haven't spoken to the motion: the Honourable Tara Rivers, the Honourable Roy McTaggart, the Honourable Jory Hugh, the Honourable Alden McLaughlin Premier. Now, they brought the motion to challenge or appeal the Chief Justice's ruling. But that appeal, as I said in my debate, in my contribution, that appeal was on the basis of an overreach, or the fact that the Chief Justice didn't have the authority to do what he did in respect to changing the law. That's what that motion was about. And then throughout that debate, people got an idea as to what each member felt about the topic of same-sex marriages. Now, the fact that those members did not give contribution did not allow the people of this country to get an idea of where they feel and how they feel. So why they strategically, out of 14 members who spoke, the Honourable Speaker of the House couldn't speak, but I think it's clear as to what his position is based on a few statements he said from his seat. But the other members chose not to speak. Now, I can't say why they didn't speak, but there's a lot of things that we have to infer from not doing something. There's an answer even when you don't answer.
Yes.
So we don't even know how they feel about that matter. But we have at the very least, there was a debate and you had a basic idea of how the majority of the legislators feel about same-sex marriage. But yet still, 4 members of the cabinet did not speak on the matter. These types of things are concerning. I still think the people of this country are owed a statement from this government as to its position by its caucus and its cabinet by way of majority of how they feel about this notion of this Foreign Affairs Committee's report suggesting that UK residents here in the Cayman Islands can run for office and vote in a general election, because I think it would change the landscape of this country, but yet they have not answered that either. And the question is, why? Mr. Connor, those are some of the key things that came out that I'm concerned about. Obviously, we got some answers to some other questions, like one of the things that was concerning me was the roads law in respect to what has happened to the family there on Printer's Way. But I think the Honourable Joy Hugh did what he had to do in respect to admitting that there are some failures in respect to what transpired there with the Morrison family, and they're trying to resolve that matter. And I have to be patient, because by all means, these things don't happen overnight. There's processes that need to happen. I feel it for the family, because every night they go to bed, they're at risk of losing their lives. But I'm trying to be mature and patient about it and not be too hostile. And I'm hoping that they find a solution soon. But the other part that came out of that, Mr. Connor, was the fact that they recognize there needs to be some amendments to the process of how you go about dealing with roads, and whether it be a policy change or a regulation change or a legislative change. So it seems as if the minister has acknowledged, rightfully so, that there needs to be some changes to the roads law, and hopefully I am looking forward to when he brings that to the Legislative Assembly, so I can give my contribution and potentially support something that makes sense. In the interim, hopefully we can find a quick solution to the Morrison family, because every day that passes, they're at risk. So there's a number of other questions that came up by other members of the opposition as well. And I think that most people would have by now had a hearing or a viewing of the proceedings of the Legislative Assembly. So I won't go through each and every one of them and revert to all of what has happened. But those are some of the key ones that were concerning to me. The other major thing that happened in the last sitting of the House was the strategic policy statement. And for those of you who may not be so familiar in respect to what the SPS is, it's just basically an outline roadmap idea of what the government would like to do for the next 2 years, starting from January 1st, 2020, because we operate in 2-year cycles now, as before we used to do in 1-year cycles for budgets. So this strategic policy statement, which I think is rather, well, I'm reluctant to say well done. I would say it's a very long one, and the execution of the speech was good by the Premier, because it takes a strong man to do the comprehensiveness of what he's done and outline it. But I don't still agree that he's covered he didn't cover some of the things that I think are more important to the people of this country. It still seems a lot like the same.
Mm-hmm.
And
can you enumerate some of those for the benefit of our audience?
Well, I would be giving away the cat out of the box beforehand. Obviously, there is going to be a budget debate in respect to this strategic policy statement, this roadmap for the people based on this administration. And when they come with a budget to say, okay, this is our roadmap, we need the funding for this roadmap as to what we want to do, there will be another discussion. And because of the extensiveness of this strategic policy statement, it's important that all members take the time to outline what they don't see in it, what they support in it. There's a number of things in here that I do support, and I'm glad and I'm happy that they have at least acknowledged some of those things and trying to address it. But there's a number of things that are not there. Mm-hmm. So I'm preparing myself now for that budget debate to highlight those things that of concern that I think the people are not getting answers to, or their government is not prioritizing on behalf of the people. And the more concerning part for me, Mr. Connor, is the fact that this strategic policy statement is the strategic policy statement that will take us through to the next election. That means that if the priorities upon which many other persons in society think are important are not in this, that means they don't plan to address it at all in this administration. So I think it's very important, if there's something that you see that the government is not doing and haven't done so far, and it's not in this strategic policy statement, that is the acknowledgement that it won't happen at all in this administration. And I intend to highlight what those things are in the upcoming budget debate. And potentially some of that may be touched on in the next sitting of the House once it's announced. So I think that the people of the country will do as they always do, pay close attention to the next couple sittings to see where the deficiencies are at this administration, also to highlight the things that they're intending to do for the next 2 years. So, but I won't let the cat out of the bag, so to speak, in that respect, and I'm still haven't completed all of it because this is a 30-page, very fine print statement. So it is my obligation to go through each and every line of it and come to take a position on it. So that was the next big thing that happened in the House. If you have the time, I know many Caymanians are working really hard in order to survive in this country and may not, as well as take care of their loved ones, their kids and their seniors and the like. But if you happen to have a few extra hours, a couple of hours to go to the YouTube website, I think it's important that we all as Caymanians have the opportunity to listen to the strategic policy statement, because it's exactly the roadmap of the intention of this administration moving forward. And I think we should all know what it is. And if you disagree or you think that they haven't prioritized a certain area of concern for you, it is time for you to voice it. And you can voice it through your various different representatives to put the necessary pressures on them at the administration to say, yes, you have put in order 1 to 10 as your top priorities, but actually the people of this country think that the list that you've put on number 21 should actually be number 3 on the list. So that's how that works. Take the time to see it. You should know what the roadmap plan is of this administration going forward, and I will do my best analysis as to what is important to the people of Georgetown Central as well as the people of the country as a whole, of where I think they're lacking or where the numbers are not prioritized. So I intend to do that in short order.
Okay. We still have some time before, about 2 minutes before our next break.
Well, I am also aware that the Honorable Ezard Miller has resigned yesterday. I think this probably may be the first opportunity for us to discuss about, for one, his resignation from the opposition leadership. And I am not going to try to dwell too much into that because obviously I am not an official member of the official opposition. I'm an independent opposition, so I operate separately from the 5 members of opposition, now 4 members of opposition. But I also recognize that yesterday the Honorable Ezard Miller resigned from the Public Accounts Committee. I think the public, I must say that I'm saddened by that, because you can say all you like about the Honorable Member Ezard Miller, but he was an excellent chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. Mm-hmm. He took the job very seriously.
Very efficient.
And very efficiently as well. And I think we were going to be at a loss in respect to losing him from that committee, a committee that is so important to the good governance and a watchful eye on how the spending of the people's money is done. But that being said, I had the opportunity to give the member a call and ask him if his intention was to resign from the committee altogether. I was at least hoping that maybe he said, okay, I'm not going to be the chairperson because there's conventions that say, because it's not constitutional, unlike what it seems to be suggested in the Honorable Premier's statement. It seems to be a suggestion. You can tweak the wording a little bit there in respect to his statement. That is a constitutional matter, but it's not a constitutional matter because I perused the Constitution yesterday extensively. There is no provision in the Constitution that mandates that the opposition leader be the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee. But what it is just a matter of tradition and respect and convention. So I think he did it from a position of honor and respect to whoever may be the next opposition leader whenever that is selected, to say, okay, I'm going to step aside. And if that person wants the chairmanship, then they have the opportunity because I have stepped aside.
Okay,
we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we get back.
We're going to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
They say cleaning your house never killed anyone, but why take chances? Spend your time doing what you love and leave the rest to Roper's Janitorial. Complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential with 24-hour emergency service. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511. Email janitorial@ropers.ky. Take back your life and get the job done right the first time. Roper's Janitorial, 949-2511.
Rotaract Blue, in support of the Cayman Special Needs Community, present the 11th Annual Open Arms Gala, The Great Gatsby. Saturday, May 25th at Ristorante Papagayo. Cocktails begin at 6 p.m. 3-course dinner, award ceremony, silent auction at 7 p.m. Attire is Gatsby chic. Your ticket is only $100 per person. Your table only $1,500. Tickets available online at eventpro.ky or email president.rotaractblue@gmail.com. The Open Arms Program promotes care, understanding, and non-discrimination for disabled persons. The Great Gatsby by Rotaract Blue. Inspiration to the next generation.
A good night's sleep makes all the difference the next day, like more energy and an alert mind. Get the sleep your body needs with a comfortable, supportive mattress from the Mattress Gallery at Tomlinson Furniture. Choose from all major brands such as Serta, Simmons, Beautyrest, Tempur, Sealy. Visit our testing center today and have it home tonight, as we have the largest selection of mattresses in stock. We are ready to help you sleep better for less at the Mattress Gallery at Tomlinson Furniture. Call 949-5383 for more info.
Now until supplies last, clearance on select Beautyrest mattresses at the Mattress Gallery by Tomlinson Furniture.
Why my wife always asking if I'm in a rush when she's the one always making us late?
Might as well say, yeah, I'm in a rush and go buy the new Toyota Rush you've been talking about, because they on sale this month. Dial teacher.
The super special spring SUV sale at Vant Motors. Save up to $4,400 with SUVs starting at only $23,500, like the 7-seater Toyota Rush. Save money, get cash back, or use the discount to upgrade features on the SUV of your choice, including the Toyota RAV4, the Fortuner, the Rush, or the Ford EcoSport. It's our super special spring SUV sale. Only at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, MLA Mr. Kenneth Bryan. We will now continue with the conversation with Mr. Bryan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Connor. Basically, what I was saying before the break is the sadness I felt about the fact that the Honourable Isaac Miller is no longer going to be the chairperson of a very important committee calling the Public Accounts Committee. And for those of you who may not be familiar with that committee, that's the committee that keeps a watchful eye on the spending of the people's money. A very important committee. And the Honourable Member, Mr. Miller, has done a very good job in that role, very efficient, very effective, and he has now resigned. As a result, that traditionally the role of the chairperson is filled by the leader of the opposition. As most of us may also know, that there's currently no leader, or technically he is still the leader until the end of the month, because he's given his resignation as the leader of the opposition as well, but doesn't become effective until the end of May. If I am correct.
Yeah, May 31st.
So technically speaking, once he has, that time is up, and if the next person, whoever is being selected from the official opposition members, that person would have the convention traditional opportunity to choose whether they want to take the position of chairmanship. So depends on who becomes the opposition leader, that person can say, okay, I will become the chairman of PAC, or I decline it. He has the right to do so, because we've seen in the previous administration where we don't necessarily have to have the opposition leader as the chairperson. For example, the last administration, the opposition leader was the Honourable McKeeva Bush. The premier was the Honourable Alden McLaughlin, but the chairperson was still said Mr. Ezard Miller. So we have precedent showing that it doesn't have to be the opposition leader. So depending, and as far as I've heard, there's much talk as to the honourable member from East End may be the successor. I don't want to
I was going to ask you if you were prepared to speculate to see who it might be.
That is speculation. I want to make sure that is clear, but that's been the whispers, so to speak, and maybe it was probably inappropriate that I mentioned that, but I can only be honest with the people as to what the whispers or the assumptions are. But we don't know that. The honourable member from East End is away at this time, and I'm assuming the official opposition members will do the right thing by having the appropriate conversations and select amongst themselves who the next leader would be.
Now, speaking of that, and sorry for interrupting you, but I need to get this in. There are situations, I recall once in Bermuda when the Progressive Labour Party in Bermuda, after winning the elections, and there was some struggles over the leadership position, and within the party itself, a gentleman by the name of Alex Scott ended up becoming prime minister. And I remember talking to my friends over in Bermuda, and they spoke about the fact that he was really a dark horse in the race. He was a substitute, a compromise selection at the end of the day. Is such a thing possible? It's possible that it could happen, or probable that you could end up with a quote unquote dark horse in emerging from the opposition to become the leader of the opposition, and not necessarily one of those who everyone thinks may be. For instance, a Kenneth Bryan.
To answer your question, obviously there is a probability of that. There's always a probability. I think you're asking me whether or not I would want
You've
to be
been running.
There's no discussions of that at this particular point. But if the question you're asking me for whether I would take the position of opposition leader is a very serious one, and has a lot of responsibility. One that I never shy away from. And if you're asking me whether I would take it, of course I would, because it's a very important role to this country. And I would give it my best as long as the provisions available to the opposition leader are available for them to do their job. And as long as I have the opportunity to seek senior counsel from my senior members in our community to give me the guidance necessary, and have a team that is willing to stand together on one common ground and move forward together. So if those parameters were in place, of course I would. And I think that I have the will and tenacity to give it my all on behalf of the people, and I would do a good job. That's my interpretation. But that's not I don't think that's in play at this particular point, just to give a narrative for the people.
Yeah.
But I don't shy away from opportunities to represent my people and do best for my country.
Now, yesterday, you and I had a conversation. It was on the phone, not face-to-face. But we talked about the fact that the opposition is seen, usually viewed, as the government in waiting, either through as a result of a general election or in the event that the current government should fall by a vote of no confidence, by a certain number of members crossing the floor and going over to the other side. But in the Westminster system of government, the opposition is seen as the government in waiting. How does a fragmentation of the opposition here in the Cayman Islands prevent us from having a government in waiting?
Well, let me say or address some of the things you said. You said traditionally that's the common practice or the common perception. I think we're seeing changing times with different types of leadership styles, because I can easily see a person who is in the position of the leadership of the opposition, but not necessarily the automatic selection as the premier if that came up. I think that because of lack of succession planning over the years, what we're seeing is different people testing different roles. That's why I'm quite disappointed with the fragmentation of the opposition myself, because I think that we weren't planning for leadership opportunities. My view was that, particularly with the member from Newlands, Alva Suku, was that there was going to be an 18-month period where Mr. Miller would then allow him to step up into the leadership position to get some experience, to potentially give him or give us, the people, the opportunity to see, does he have the leadership skills necessary to be a premier of this country? And vice versa for the elected member from Bordentown East, Bordentown West, Christopher Saunders. And I think that we could have used, I say we as in the members who are on the opposite side of the administration, could have used the opportunities for, say, for instance, each year for the next 4 years, that one member steps up for the opposition leadership and one member sits as the deputy. Because it gives exposure, because we don't have the traditional maturity of succession planning, so you can always see the next member in line. And some people may be upset to say, oh, the opposition is in shambles. The truth is, this is no different than what's happening in the government. The truth of the matter is they have not done any succession planning either. This is why we don't know up to this day. We're 2 years away from the next election. We know the premier can't be the premier again, but there's no consensus of who would be the next premier if, in fact, they win again. Unless you are aware that the Honorable Moses Kirkconnell is going to be the next premier. I haven't heard a whisper about that. So you can see that they're no longer doing succession planning either. And I think they themselves are having problems finding the next leader. And this is what happens when you have lack of succession planning. And I believe in giving opportunities to shine and show your capabilities. You don't know how capable a person may be until you give them the chance. Many people didn't think I was going to be as capable as I am now. But you give a person a chance. We have to believe in our people, particularly the next generation, because you can't be there forever. And I think that if the opposition was smart, because I don't think there would be a consensus as to the next opposition leader may be the next premier. I think there is still a lot to be proven in respect to that. And I think that you can have a style of governance to say, listen, this person represents our voice for now. When we then start to campaign, we will tell you who our premier may be. And that's what I think what should have been done before. And then give each one of those members an opportunity to present their leadership capabilities either by way of deputy or by way of leader of the opposition.
Okay. We have one caller, but we're close to the headline news at 9 o'clock, but we will take the call. We'll take the caller and we'll ask the caller that we will tell him that we will interrupt him and ask him to hold on after the headline news to continue the conversation. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. Moderator. How are you?
Good morning, sir. I'm fine. How are you? Nice to hear your voice.
All right. I'm all right. It's great great. You have a great show again this morning.
Thank you very much.
I have a comment I would like to offer. If you
certainly, sir. Yes.
Yeah, I have to say, as I listen to young Mr. Bryan, that he is acquitting himself well, articulating himself well. I hope he's also doing footwork in his constituency, because I've been following him, and I think he's on the track to re-election. But more specifically this morning, I want to sanction his comments, but I also want to draw from my experience to say that the lack of succession planning in politics has been a plague on this society. And this is one of the things I comment on frequently in my writings, because what has happened, the people who dominated the politics have a fear of other people, outside people, and it extended from the old Vesper system where the justices were the merchants and the people who were the elite, and the vestrymen were either their surrogates or deemed to be less inferior, hence lacking the ability to lead. It probably is a product of the old colonial system, because I think I see the same trends in many other Caribbean societies. Now back to our case. Way back from 1992, when we went to the UK for the first time, Walter Wallace, I'll never forget, Walter Wallace told us, look, the UK don't like to talk to a group of people, independents. Go and form yourselves into a political party. And when you come, you will be speaking with authority. Because instead of it being 7 different people as it was then, it will be one person speaking, voicing, and expressing the opinions of the 7, a collective. Well, we shied away from that because the pundits of that time said, oh, well, this is leading to independence, and, all you have to be very careful of power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I have always, Mr. Moderator, been a party man. And I say without fear of successful contribution that the most and best organized political party in the Cayman Islands, barring Mr. Ormond Patton and the Cayman Vanguard Progressive Party, was a party we had called Team Cayman, because we had district councils who were functioning, and we had it right up to the hierarchy, and the representatives were controlled by a civilian body outside of politics.
Okay, Mr. Borden, we're going to ask you to hold the line there. We're going to go to our headline news very quickly. Don't hang up. We want to continue this conversation. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
The 2019 annual hurricane exercise is taking place May 23rd and 24th. Government says Hurricane Callie has been designed to test the National Hurricane Plan and those involved in the National Response Mechanism. Asia Bibi, a Pakistani Christian woman who spent years on death row after being convicted of blasphemy, has left the country. Her conviction was overturned last year by the Supreme Court. She was originally convicted in 2010 after being accused of insulting the Prophet Muhammad in a row with her neighbors. She has always maintained her innocence in a case that has polarized Pakistan. And Iran has suspended commitments under the 2015 international nuclear deal, a year after it was abandoned by the United States. President Hassan Rouhani said he would keep enriched uranium stocks in the country rather than sell them abroad. He also threatened to resume production of uranium enriched to a higher level in 60 days. The accord was aimed at curbing Iran's nuclear ambitions in return for sanctions relief. Iran-U.S. tensions have risen since Washington quit. Those are your headlines. I'm Karsley Fuller.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
For the Record with Ort Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the Record with Ort Connor continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, Emily, Mr. Kenneth Brand. We have Mr. Roy Borden, former president of the University College of the Cayman Islands, on hold. But before I go back to him, I just want to say happy birthday to our own Miss Paulette Connolly, who's celebrating her birthday today. And that is coming from her parents, and also from the rest of the family. So big happy birthday to Miss Paulette today. I hope you have a cake here ready for her. I'm not leaving after the show until I get a slice of cake from somewhere. So if you don't have one, please go out and get one. Let's go back to the phone lines. Mr. Borden, are you still there with us?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I am.
You have the mic again, sir. Go right ahead. Go right ahead, sir. We lost him.
No. I'm still here, Mr.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was saying, sir, that without fear of successful contradiction, I can say that the best organized party since Mr. Orman and since before him the Cayman Vanguard Progressive Party was Team Cayman. Now the Premier is right when he is saying that the government has no fear that because of the opposition is splintered. Mm-hmm. That is clear. These are what I call in my writings, Mr. Moderator, unholy alliances, because they are made on the exigencies of the moment. Mm-hmm. It's just a marriage of conveniences. Is in your former position is how you would describe it.
Yes. Right.
But also I agree with Mr. Bryan that the government is not much better in the sense that they don't have a succession plan either. We don't know, heaven forbid, what would happen, who the next premier would be, if there is something, and the country should be able to predict with some kind of certainty who that person may be. Mm-hmm. I think, sir, in my final comment would be, it is time for us to get away from this business of political parties and people wanting to form parties and leaders of parties being bogeymen who want to lead us because they have some agenda and they are corrupt. Far from the case. This lack of formal organization in our politics is stymieing our political development, and it is also affecting our economic development. Because when we come to deal in business, we would like to know who the manager is.
Yes.
And who the manager and who is next to the manager and who is above the manager. So the system we have doesn't serve us any purpose and serve the purpose any longer. And I would have hoping with the acceptance of the new constitution, we would have had formal political parties well on their way to entrenchment now. Yeah. I await the results of the 2021 election to see if we're going to advance or if we're going to keep in this retarded state. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Borden, for that. And just to add to that, when you look at our 2009 Constitution, a lot of it is geared towards political parties.
Yeah, I agree with that. First, before I give my comments, I want to thank the Honorable Roy Borden for his kind endorsements. To get that kind of endorsement from a man of his caliber and his experience gives me some comfort in my direction politically. And I also want to say thank him for his current literature that he wrote. I'm truly enjoying a good read of his book, From the Guardhouse to the Glasshouse, and I encourage everyone to get a copy of it. It's truly a great read by somebody who was there and to give a good account as to how the country got to this point politically. And he gives a good analysis. I'm not completed yet, but I almost feel like I'm looking in the mirror or reading in the mirror when I see it. And I hope that I can possibly get even a small percentage of his abilities in respect to his understanding politically and knowledge. So I want to thank him for that. But Mr. Borden is 100% correct. The country is or has been preparing itself to go towards parties and party structure. Now, I think you and I were here together when one of my political advisors and friend, and I almost call him my second father, the Honorable, God forbid, Dr. Steve Tomlinson.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to call him Dr. T because it's informal, but we spoke about why people are anti-parties in this country. And it's because of what Mr. Bodden just expressed, is that it doesn't function like a party. Because independently, you have the opportunity to express your views, and there's provisions in place for you to act independently if the party isn't operating correctly. Because in this country, we don't operate on a traditional party system, which is there's an ideology that masters and trumps any behavior of any one individual.
More than an ideology, there's usually a constitution
exactly
that is for the party and for the party members to adhere to.
Exactly. But we don't. I mean, I can't say that the parties here didn't have constitutions. They did. But whether they adhered to it is a different question. And then they stop the provisions, and there's this behavior that if you don't adhere to a certain individual or certain individuals, that you are pushed aside. As you can see in the UK, in their parliament, you have members holding their own party members accountable every day, and they're not blacklisted for it. Because
sometimes they are. Sometimes they are.
I agree. You're right with that. But it's not the common practice. Because if you are justified to say, this is what we represent, this is what our ideology is, and your behavior is dispelling that you are not adhering to that ideology, then you're the one in the wrong. In this country, if you dare go against what the leader says, God forbid for you, you're done. And that's why I shied away from the political party system here. Not because of the lack of structure, because I do agree that the structure is important. It is almost mandatory for you to get good structure in place with any one grouping. So why I would venture more to a group or an alliance like what Mr. Miller may have said is because the party system as we know it in the Cayman Islands defined is totally different than what party systems operate elsewhere because of the habitual behavior that they have dispelled.
Now speaking of the individual's ability to disagree, what purpose, and you've, I'm sure, been a part of the, when you were part of the PPM, their caucus and everything, what function does the caucus serve? Does it allow individuals to express their views despite the fact that it may not be the prevailing view of the members of the party, for you to disagree at the end of the day and then still come to some final resolution?
Unfortunately, I can't comment on that for two purposes. One, when I was the political assistant to the Premier, I was sworn to protect the information. I'm not asking for information. I'm just asking about how it works. How it works, I agree. But also, secondly, I was only privy to two caucus meetings. And in those meetings, I wasn't privy to see any of that kind of behavior to say to you, well, this is how I saw it. But I'm only telling you from what I've expressed from before I was elected by members expressing their concerns and their behaviors and their worries that they can't say their piece, as well as what I'm hearing even now. So it would be wrong for me to make an assessment. Being in caucus, I wasn't there with them. But we've heard it. I mean, it's not like it's something new. We hear about the fact that members feel that they can't say anything without feeling like they will be ostracized for it or blacklisted. Party structures are not supposed to be that way, because if you feel ostracized, then the transparency part of things and the pureness of the solution can't come out. If you feel that you have to stop at a certain point, because if you go any further, you'll be blacklisted. And that's what we need to get from. And that's why I'm more supportive to the idea of independent thinking. I was even of the view to say, listen, I think they should start an independent party. But many people say, well, that's an oxymoron in itself. An oxymoron meaning it's a double negative.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is there should be some sort of grouping that has the benefits of connectivity, structure, and commitment to a common purpose, but still have the leverage of, if necessary, you can have your own say without penalization in any way. So how do we get that? And to be honest with you, I'm so glad that Mr. Borden called in, because I'm going to reach out to him and talk a little bit more about that. I'm even getting some direction through his book. And again, I encourage everybody to buy the book. Trust me, it is an amazing book. And it's truly...
Had a great launch.
Yes.
Huge response.
And one of Cayman's greatest writers, I mean, I don't know of many Cayman writers, and I think when history passes, we're going to see how amazing and important his recollection and notification of how history has passed us politically is going to be something that is researched by the kids in this country. So get it now while he's still alive and still kicking and still contributing to our society, and be able to say, I shook his hand, a great man that recorded our political history. But it is difficult because in respect to how things are politically, me giving my analysis here this morning, I can guarantee you there are many key players who are listening and they're saying, okay, that young man got elected. He came through the back door, so to speak. We didn't see him coming. He's now elected. Now he's expressing himself. We got to control that situation. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do? The reason why it's difficult, because if I'm expressing my thoughts that is not with the status quo, I'm putting myself in danger of not being reelected, because the status quo don't like people who are game changers. And that's why I see myself as, because the current game that's been playing for so many decades have not been working for the people of this country. So that being said, trust me, I love this dialogue. But this dialogue doesn't help me any better. But at least the people know the truth, and that's what's important.
Okay, we have one caller. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we return, we're going to take that caller as well. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
Why my wife always asking if I'm in a rush when she's the one always making us late?
Might as well say, yeah, I'm in a rush, and go buy the new Toyota Rush you've been talking about, because they on sale this month. Dull, teacher.
The super special spring SUV sale at Vamt Motors. Save up to $4,400 with SUVs starting at only $23,500, like the 7-seater Toyota Rush. Save money, get cash back, or use the discount to upgrade features on the SUV of your choice, including the Toyota RAV4, the Fortuner, the Rush, or the Ford EcoSport. It's our super special spring SUV sale. Only at Vamt Motors, Walkers Road.
I remember playing at 7 Mile Beach as a boy, eating mango by the sea, learning how to snorkel. My mother, she worked so hard to provide for our family so that we could have those moments. Seeing her age has been tough. That strong, capable woman, now in need of daily support, it's my time to be strong for her.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of the careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
Rotaract Blue, in support of the Cayman Special Needs Community, present the 11th Annual Open Arms Gala, The Great Gatsby. Saturday, May 25th at Ristorante Papagayo. Cocktails begin at 6 p.m. 3-course dinner, award ceremony, silent auction at 7 p.m. Attire is Gatsby chic. Your ticket is only $100 per person. Your table only $1,500. Tickets available online at eventpro.ky or email president.rotaractblue@gmail.com. The Open Arms program promotes care, understanding, and non-discrimination for disabled persons. The Great Gatsby by Rotaract Blue. Inspiration to the next generation.
Support our port, support our tourism.
Did you know the procurement process for the cruise berth facility has gone above and beyond to make sure that we get this project right? Government commissioned some of the most respected companies in the world to carry out research on scientific studies, and their expertise and findings are being used to make the best decisions possible. Learn more and spread the word.
Support our port, support our tourism.
For the Record with Ort Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the Record with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're going straight to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Morning, Doc. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Bryan. This is Steve McField.
Good morning, Mr. McField. Dr. McField, that is. Good morning.
I would like to concur with what President Roy Barton said, President Emeritus Roy Barton said. I would like to concur with him, and it's not like what Charles Smith said when they instructed him in the legislature to decline from the vote. And when he got up, he says he didn't say I decline. He says I recline. So I concur with what God said. Unfortunately, further, those of us who studied the history of the British Constitution and the history of the British political system, because it's different from many other systems. There are many other systems. There's the French system, there's the American system, there's the Indian system, which adopted the British Constitution system, the Canadian system. But many of us who have studied the history of the Westminster system of government, who have studied that, will know that the Westminster system of government has no place for independence. I had said that during the election, and I was vilified about it. The Westminster system of government is a political system. That is how it started, and that's how it developed. It's a political system. It's an adversarial system. That's the reason why the House of Commons is set up as it is, both sides opposing each other. It's a system that was based on party development. If you study the party development in the British system of government, you'll see how the parties developed. There were the Whigs and the Tories, which now became the Conservatives and the Labour. So if you study those systems, you will know that it came out of a long tradition of political affiliations. People affiliate with each other politically, by parties, by organizations, similar to a company. You have a company, you have the rules and regulations of how the directors should vote and the shareholders and so forth. The parties the same. It has no room for independent thinking. If you Ort Connor asked us how does a dissident in the party gets to put his views? Well, you put your views at the party conferences that is held every year. Mm-hmm. That is where you get to put your views. You go there to the party platform and you get to show the other people what you just dissatisfied with. But at the end of the day, if that is not accepted, you have to obey by the rules of the party or you go. But Caymanian people don't really want to obey formality. We have never been the kind of people who did that, who obey formality. We have never actually succumbed to a leader. The only time that Caymanians have ever succumbed to a leader or obey a leader was captains on ships in the old days when the captain on the ship was gone. When he had the right to marry. He had the right to he could shoot you or kill you if you disobeyed his orders and things like that. And as the late Maurice Gerard said, Commissioner of the Cayman Islands said in nautical metaphors, this is what he said. He says Caymanian politicians are some of the most difficult people he's ever met, and he said he's some of the most dishonest people he's ever met. He says every one of them wants to be captain. In other words, want to be leader of the group. And he says if they all cannot become captain and go up to the wheelhouse and steer the ship, they will go down in the engine room and wreck the engine so the ship cannot sail. So that's how we are. That's the kind of people we are. You cannot have independence forming a government when each one has a different opinion, because there's something in the British parliamentary system called collective responsibility. You are collectively responsibility in cabinet, and you are collectively responsible to the legislature, to the House of Commons. And you cannot have people with one view when you're supposed to be collective or responsible. That will not work. Either you go. So if you notice that most of the parliaments around the world, independents do not form any governments. Independents do not form any decision-making positions in government because that would be impossible to have everyone with a different independent mind. And the Premier is right. And that's why Barton said the Premier is right when he says that the independents will never be able to form a government, because you cannot have one man saying one thing, a next man saying the next thing, and then they do not want to follow the policy of the party. Because the reason why someone is elected leader of a party is because they have gone through all of the nuances of the party, how you should get elected. And once you do that, then you either he leads you or he doesn't. It's the same thing as a captain on a ship. Either he's a captain or he's not. And so Caymanians have for some reasons we do not like to obey policies and rules and regulations, and that is one reason why we do not have the district councils, and that is the reason we do not have the standard in public life, because we do not like to take advice and stuff from other people, especially the people who we believe are the little people in the street, because that's what a district council is to get advice and stuff from the people who you represent. And that is the reason why we don't have those, because we are unruly people, and we do not like formality, and we will destroy anyone who try to bring formality to a group. That's what we do, and that is the reason why we don't excel in sports. Because many years ago, I asked a football coach, what's the reason for our teams not winning and stuff, and he says, well, everyone on the team wants to be an individual. And if a guy can play a little better than the other guy, then he will take the ball and keep it and will not pass the ball on to the other people. Chuck a long time ago.
Doc?
Hello?
Yeah, Doc.
So independents have no business in party fight. And independents will never form a government. And anybody who believes that they can become an independent and run a country, and especially as diverse as Cayman is now, in the world where you have to be organized and you have to come forward with the views of your people. And that is the reason why Mr. Bryan has said that some members of the cabinet did not state their position in the legislative assembly, because they did not want to put their positions, and that's the reason why they kept silent, because their positions would have been different from the government's and so forth. And that is our Achilles heel. And everyone who comes here knows that about us. Everyone who comes here, even the laborer from Pakistan or from Jamaica or from Philippines or from Thailand, knows that that's our Achilles heel. That we are people who do not get together. We do not like formality, and that is the reasons why we are not succeeding, and we'll never succeed until we have a next generation who understands these principles and stuff. So Mr. Borden is right, and so Mr. Gilbert McLean is right. All of us are right, and that's the reason why we are not part of the political system as it stands today, because we know that it's a failure, and we do not want to continue to be failures in a country where we live.
Doc, I want to thank you very much for that input, and I'm sure Mr. Bryan will take the opportunity to respond to some of what you've said as well. Thank you very much for that, Doc. I think we have about 2.5 minutes before we go to the next break.
Okay. If I don't conclude, then I can just come back. I want to say thanks to Dr. McPhail for his input, though I don't necessarily agree with everything he's said in respect to the viewpoint of how independents work versus parties. I'm concerned that he says statements like, this is how Caymanians are. They don't know how to listen, and if they don't listen, they'll go down in the engine room and wreck the ship. I'm not of that view. I'm very certain that my people, once having the understanding of all factors, can make the right decisions. He also just said that the next generation needs to understand the system in order to operate within it. I would like to say that I am a representation, or one of the representation of the next generation. I know the system quite well, or starting to understand the system more every day. But I think he's fundamentally wrong when he says the independents will never run this country. Times are changing, and the younger generation see things a little bit differently. But you see, the foundation of his argument is that he doesn't recognize that people change and process and conventions change as well. And I'll try to explain how his theory is wrong. He says that independents will never be able to run the government. Currently, right now, we have 2 members who are independent, who are members of the cabinet, as well as 2 members.
But I think you have to take into context what he means by run the government. What he means is that a full collection of independents, all independent candidates would never run the country. Current situation that you have is you have a coalition government with
some
independents on it, but the major numbers coming from the progressives.
Okay, well, we've had this conversation yesterday, and I have my view on it, and I'll try to express so the listening audience can understand. And it's a very important one, because this is the narrative that they're going to try to sell, that the parties, those who are members of parties, are going to try to sell to ask the voters not to vote for independent members. And it's important that we examine it. And if we have to go to a break first and then come back and examine, I think that may be best.
Certainly, good idea.
So we can examine it properly.
Folks, please stay tuned for the record. With MLA Mr. Kenneth Bryan will continue after this short break.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore, Seaboard.
Rotaract Blue, in support of the Cayman Special Needs Community, present the 11th Annual Open Arms Gala, The Great Gatsby. Saturday, May 25th at Ristorante Papagayo. Cocktails begin at 6 p.m. 3-course dinner, award ceremony, silent auction at 7 p.m. Attire is Gatsby chic. Your ticket is only $100 per person. Your table only $1,500. Tickets available online at eventpro.ky or email president.rotaractblue@gmail.com. The Open Arms Program promotes care, understanding, and non-discrimination for disabled persons. The Great Gatsby by Rotaract Blue. Inspiration to the next generation.
Sounds of Expressions, a Toastmasters event on May 29th at 6 p.m. at the Georgetown Town Hall.
An evening of intimate poetry and live music displayed by our Toastmasters and local musicians.
Admission only $10. All proceeds go towards our youth leadership program.
Come on down and support our youth as it promises to be a night of captivating entertainment.
Sounds of Expressions.
Tickets available at Sings Rotary Shop, a Toastmasters fundraising event proudly sponsored by Radio Cayman,
Star 92.7, Audio Wave,
The Performance Lab,
FunFet, Acorn Publishing, and Sings Roti Shop.
Keeping cool in Cayman is essential, but can be costly. Making small adjustments to your household can lead to big savings and help protect the environment. Keep your blinds, curtains, doors, and windows closed when it's hot outside. Using a fan instead of AC will use less power and can cost a mere third of air conditioning. And when using a fan, rotate it anti-clockwise, which will blow the cool air downward, saving even more energy and money. Visit the Ministry of Commerce, Planning, and Infrastructure's Facebook page for more tips on alternatives to AC and be an energy advocate.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, MLA Mr. Kenneth Bryan, who represents the constituents of Georgetown Central in our Legislative Assembly. No caller on the line now. Mr. Bryan, go right ahead.
Thank you. Before we went to the break, we had the Honorable Dr. Steve McPhail, who was suggesting that independents will never run this country. And I totally disagree with him. Whether we would say the probabilities are higher or lower for a group that is associated with a party to run, that may be a fairer statement. But to say this never going to happen, I think, is an assumption that he made rather than a fact. And I'll say why they're coming to these conclusions, and it's sadly because of some of the dysfunctionalities of the members of the opposition, and that happens. The things has to be refined and sorted out, and try to see if they can become a group that is functioning again, and I suspect that they will, regardless of their differences. But here's what we currently have in the administration and what a government of independent members would look like. So ultimately people are saying, well, but all independent people with all different views wouldn't be able to work and collectively run a government. And the reason why is because, like you suggested yesterday on the phone, was that how can you have 7 members of a cabinet where the collective responsibility part comes in, all have different views and working together? What we have right now is...
I think, if I can correct it, it's more than different views. It is one thing to have a view, but there's another thing to say, my views, I want them to be articulated and in the form of policies. And then you end up with varying policy, attempts at policies. Well, for instance, for one example, Mr. Christopher Saunders, MLA Christopher Saunders, has said that any changes to the Constitution, be they minor or otherwise, must go to the people in the form of a referendum. And he said publicly on this show that he is prepared to take on both
government and his own
opposition in that regard. Right? Now, if Mr. Christopher Saunders were to become a part of a cabinet and still held those views, one of two things would happen. He would hold those views and keep them quiet, right? Or he would say, I'm sticking to my guns on this, and unless I get this, I am not going along with anything else.
Yes, and there's processes for that.
And that's where the turmoil...
No. You see, you got to recognize they're in two different environments. One is on the independent or on the opposition environment, and one is on the government environment. Collective responsibility is a real thing. So say, for instance, you have 7 members who are all independents. They're constitutionally obligated to a collective responsibility. Therefore, one of those independent members can't come out and say that. Otherwise, they will no longer be a part of the cabinet.
But I'm not talking about him coming out. I'm saying insisting that unless he gets that, he's not going along with anything else.
Well, and then he would be removed from the government, which is fine. That can happen. Yeah. That's a security measure in place for the democracy.
And if every independent member of that cabinet were to take that position, you'd end up with no cabinet.
Fair enough. So hold on. I think you're admittedly agreeing with what the Premier has said. And I think you're admitting what the Honourable Steve McPhail has said. I think based on that comment you just told me. But let me put things in perspective. People are saying that the independents would never be able to get it done because they wouldn't be able to run a government. I disagree. What we have right now is a coalition government where we have 4 fractions. The Progressives, the CDP, Austin Harris, and Dwayne Seymour. Some may even say 5 fractions because the Honourable Tara Rivers has maintained that she's an independent member, but some say she's practically progressives. But I'm going to respect her position. She's said publicly, and she hasn't given me any other reason to believe that she's a part of the progressives. She's not a signatory member, and she is campaigned differently from them. So we technically have 5 fractions of this administration, 5 different manifestos, 5 different positions on various different topics. What works is when they realize, okay, we have to form a government. We have to come together and find the priorities of those 5 different fractions, put them together, and create a policy directive. So everybody get a little bit of what they wanted in respect to what they think is best for the country, and we come to a compromise to say, okay, then, Mr. Austin, you're not going to be able to get those 11 things, but you may be able to get 2. Mr. Dwayne Seymour, you're not going to be able to get those 8 things, but you can get 3. The Progressives who have 7...
But you have to have an overall policy objective.
And
there has to be an overall policy objective of the government.
I agree with you. Allow me to finish, and then you'll understand what I mean.
Okay.
So we have the progressives who have 7 members. They may have more of a majority because they have more of the votes. They may get 13 things because they have more votes. And then you have the CDP who was 3. They may get, say, 7 because they had 3 members they brought to the table, and vice versa. Those things come together and they create the policy statement because they have agreed amongst themselves that, okay, we decide to work together, and everybody gets a few things and they've added together, say, what are the priorities? It's no different than if you had 10 independent persons with independent manifestos. They would do the same process. They would come and they'd say, okay, you had this on your manifesto, you had that on your manifesto. Collectively together, now that we are part of our government, what are we as a majority going to agree on? And they create that policy position. And the reason why they're able to stay together, if they were a part of the government, which is being dispelled differently by yourself, Steve Macfield, and the Premier, is the fact that they now have a common goal, which keeps them together. There's no such common goal.
What's that common goal?
The common goal is that you've now compromised and said, okay, then I'm getting, out of my 10 things I campaigned on, I'm getting 2.
But what's the glue that holds them together?
The fact that they've agreed to support each other.
That's not much of a glue.
No, well,
that's not much of a glue.
Okay, but
at any point in time, that can, what they have agreed to can fall apart.
I agree, but that's the same situation with the government right now. They've all agreed. They're 5 fractions. They've all agreed. So it's a matter of maturity of the individuals rather than the maturity of the possibility of the scenario happening. Now, if you want to get into the individuals, that's a different thing.
No.
But you cannot say that you can't have 10 to 11 persons maturely getting together and said, we decide together that we're going to work with each other, and amongst ourselves in our different platforms, we selected these 30 things that are a priority, put it in a policy statement, and work with each other. That is just incorrect. And you're dispelling something, and I think that persons like the Honorable Premier is doing it specifically because he knows that there's independent persons out there who are going to be running, and it's going to hurt the party structure. That's what is happening.
In the annals of political history,
yes,
that would be a novelty.
Okay, fair enough. That is true. And things change. They didn't think the world was round until somebody went around it. You understand? And I don't believe in thinking that just the status quo will stay the same. That's why I'm a part of the next generation. Let me say this. Some may also say, well, the way the behavior of the opposition is behaving now shows an example of dysfunctionality. Here's the thing that doesn't keep them together. They have nothing to lose to keep their own independence. They haven't committed to anything. They can still do their job independently, but because their current role right now is to hold the government accountable. Right? Now, you may say they can do that more effectively as a team. But individually, I'm holding the government accountable by myself. So I'm still doing my role. If I was a part of an administration, in order for me to get the things done I want to get done for my people, I would have to do more compromising. Can I do that as an independent? Yes, I can. So the narrative that they're selling, that independents cannot do it, is absolutely wrong. It's the fact that the Google glue is holding Austin Harris, who's an independent today, together. Doreen Seymour is a minister in cabinet. It's holding him there. It's holding Tara Rivers there. So this narrative that it can't happen is incorrect, and it's politically driven because they're afraid of it.
But the other glue that's holding them together is the fact that the government has backbenchers who they can replace those current ministers who are not a part of the party. They have the ability, if necessary, to replace them with their backbenchers.
But what does that have the relevance to? I don't understand.
What I'm saying is that you're saying that the glue that holds the independent members of the cabinet together, what did you say that glue was?
The fact that they've collectively agreed through caucus,
right,
and then through cabinet.
But what I'm saying is that there are options for the government in terms of, while they rely on them, right, to have the numbers necessary from a constitutional standpoint, that there are other options there. They have backbenchers
that forces
and
them to
whether or
stay
not
together.
you can question the abilities of them, but they have them that they could replace the independent.
Well,
members
I
of
see that
cabinet
you're
with.
suggesting that some of the backbenchers.
No.
I won't put words in your mouth. Fair enough. I won't put words in your mouth. But that would be the same thing if you had 10 or 11 independent members. Because here's what will happen. When you form the government, those 10 or 11 members, through caucus, would decide what the priorities are amongst them. So, and of that 10 or 11, you would select 7 ministers of those independents. Now, we have bonded together in agreement to work together, and we've prioritized this. If one member, like say, for instance, I wouldn't say ex-member goes off board and says, I'm not supporting this, blah, 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 blah. You say, hold on, you are accountable to the other 10 within caucus, and we all agreed on this. If you don't want to operate properly, well, we're going to get Z member who is a councillor to replace you. Because not only are you obligated to the moral ground of we said that we're going to work towards this as a priority, but you're obligated by collective responsibility by the Constitution. Okay. So the same principle will work there. I don't think your argument or the Premier's argument or Steve McField's argument holds any water in respect to whether independents can do it because right now we have a coalition that's showing that it can happen.
Mr. Bryan, don't worry about my speculation of it or Dr. McField's or the Premier's. It is being played out in the politics of the Cayman Islands right before our eyes. That is why my argument is so strong, because I have the empirical evidence to prove it. Let's take a commercial break, folks.
What is the empirical evidence? Tell me what it is. What is your evidence?
The opposition is in shambles now.
And no doubt.
Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. We're coming back.
Rotaract Blue, in support of the Cayman Special Needs Community, present the 11th Annual Open Arms Gala, The Great Gatsby. Saturday, May 25th at Ristorante Papagayo. Cocktails begin at 6 p.m. 3-course dinner, award ceremony, silent auction at 7 p.m. Attire is Gatsby chic. Your ticket is only $100 per person. Your table only $1,500. Tickets available online at eventpro.ky or email president.rotaractblue@gmail.com. The Open Arms Program promotes care, understanding, and non-discrimination for disabled persons. The Great Gatsby by Rotaract Blue. Inspiration to the next generation.
Radio Cayman 11 a.m. News Headlines is brought to you by Savannah Pharmacy.
Savannah Pharmacy, just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays.
Stay updated with the very latest news from Cayman, the region, and around the world. The 11 o'clock headlines, brought to you by
Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
I love you, Mom. Mother's Day is right around the corner. Treat the moms in your life to something special with elegant floral arrangements and gifts from Celebrations.
Thank you, Mom.
Enter to win a Best Mom Ever brunch pack for Mom by spending $150 or more on any Mother's Day design. Celebrations makes gift-giving easy with beautiful floral arrangements tailored to every taste. Express your sweetest sentiment and make her day special. Offering island-wide delivery and extended Mother's Day hours. Open Sunday, May 12th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Order online at celebrationsgifts.com or visit our new location at 64 Kingbird Drive, Industrial Park.
My mother, I love you.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matter. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. Having a very lively and hopefully informative discussion with MLA Mr. Kenneth Bryan. Mr. Bryan, back to you, sir.
Yes, OC, I must say I'm enjoying today's show. and it is important that we have these analysis. But before we went to the break, you were saying that the opposition is in shambles, and therefore that is an example of the reality, and that's the only thing we can judge from. And the fact is, you said that my ideology is only theoretical.
Well, I said that off air.
Off air. Sorry. Yes, sir. I apologize. Was it okay if I said it on air?
Yeah.
Okay,
no, because we can discuss it. Yeah.
Okay. So yes, because it technically hasn't happened yet,
right?
That doesn't mean it cannot happen. If you told Christopher Columbus that, Cayman probably would never have been found. And I don't believe in that because the next generation don't think that way. So what I'm saying is there a possibility to find 10 to 12 mature, new way of thinking individual independents that can be maturely working together without being obligated to a party structure? Of course. Tara has been the prime example of that. And she's doing well as a minister. And she does the honorable thing. When she doesn't have something to say, she's collective responsibility. She doesn't say anything. So you're saying to me that this country does not have, say, for instance, 12 Taras or 12 Dweens? I mean, come on. I think that is undermining the people of this country and saying that we don't have the maturity to do so. I believe so, because I believe I am one of those persons. If I operated with this administration, the way I behave for the better interest of the administration would have to alter. If I was a part of this government, for the better interest of getting things done for the people, in respect to my what I decided to say I'm going to compromise for. If I say, okay, well, OC, you go and get the phone and I go and get the computer. And we now, and then this person is going to get the earphones in this room. Then I can't complain if the person says, no, you're going to do this, because I've agreed to that agreement. That glue doesn't happen till actually you get to the place of agreeing. What I would say to you would be good in your argument is there was not enough maturity by those who were elected, who were independents, and the other party members to get to a place that we at least agreed the number. We didn't get to that point. But if we did get to that point, once you get there, then you would actually formulate and filter out exactly what your policy position would be. We just never got there because we weren't willing, because of past grievances, and I don't want to get into that whole story as to why it never happened. We all know the story. But once we get there, as independent persons or another coalition where we say some of the CDP again and some of the PPM, but it's majority independence, you cannot say it don't work, because there's an example of it right now. So I don't want to allow this administration, particularly through the Honorable Premier Alden McLaughlin in his statements, because he's setting the political play at this point to try to give the narrative to the people of this country, don't vote for them independents, see what they're operating like. And yes, I tell you the truth, we as opposition members are making a bad play right now for future independence. And we're failing them. But I think we're not even at the 2-year mark yet. 2-year mark is on the 24th. We have the ability and the maturity. I believe in a lot of the persons who are in opposition that we're going to get over this hump, and we're going to prove to the people of this country that that was not what we're going to be seen as for the future. At least I know that I'm responsible for my behavior, and my behavior dispels exactly what I believe in.
Now, I'm going to ask you a sort of personal question, because I haven't been in that position before. As a politician, right? How much does being in politics, either being on the side of power or being on the side of the opposition, does your thinking, does it change your thinking and your approach to things from your viewpoint? How does it change it in terms of your ability to recognize the need for compromise, the ability, like you said now, to realize that if, for instance, you were part of the government, then maybe some of the things that you're saying now, you would not be saying them publicly, you know, because you're a part of the government. How much of that has changed when you look at yourself before you were in the politics and now that you're
tremendously,
in the politics?
a lot of it. And it's a good question, because you never know until you get there. And because of that lack of succession planning and passing on that information or that experience, one thing I want to do is, if there are new members who want to run and are successful, I'm going to make it my responsibility to say, expect this to come. Expect your mind to go down this road, and be prepared to challenge it and prepared to respond to it. Because I had to respond to it on my own. But I like being thrown in the water and learn how to swim because that's the best way to learn to swim. So yes, those things have happened. I know that I can't always beat up on the government because the government is not always wrong. And that would be illogical for me to do. I have to recognize that okay, if you want the government to support things you want to support, you got to be reasonable to say that there's the ideas that they have. And there's a lot of times there's merits that they have. So it's a matter of understanding the political arena and also taking the emotion out of it, because you get from a long period of 6 months of tremendous beating in adversary conversations to simmering your mind down and saying, okay, calm your nerves, now it's time to work together. And sometimes as human beings, we all make mistakes, and we need to be able to control our maturity in our mind to say, okay, then that has to be put aside now.
Yes.
No matter whether I didn't like what he said in that campaign about my girlfriend or my friend or my mother or whatever else, that's no longer a priority. The people's issues are now the priority. So even though I don't like you, I have to work with you in the best interest of the country, because that's what the people sent you there to do. I believe we're going to find many individuals with that type of thinking. I think there's many Caymanians out there who are ready and waiting and wanting to play that mature role, that new vision of how to run, rather than saying, oh, do as you're told, young man, because this is the way it goes. This generation doesn't like that.
The only thing is that we have to get that
wisdom there,
and to get that constitution ready for them. That will have to provide some guidance, some guidelines in terms of how that system
will operate.
All independence will operate, because there has to be something. It can't be all unwritten. It can't be, on a person's honor or the fact that you're an individual. We give you the right to express your individual. There's going to have to be something that some guidelines.
I see what you're saying, but I think that there's provisions already in place to a certain extent. The reason I say that is because if, for example, like you just said, 12 independent members work together. They all have to sign a letter to, like what we were trying to do, to the governor to say we decided that we're going to work together, and of us all, because we're not a party, and the Constitution gives provisions under the party with the majority becoming premier. Because there's no majority, these signees give the support to Mr. Oric Corner as an independent member to lead us as a party. So you then fall into the party regulations under the Constitution, because you've given that commitment to operate in that particular way. Even if you're a party member or an independent, the collective responsibility in cabinet remains the same no matter what. So to say that there's no constitutional provisions in place is not really 100% correct, because you can do so by your commitment to a letter to the governor of this country, who is the representative of the Queen. So it can happen, because it's happening right now.
Or you have them sign their resignation letter before. Some governments have done that, right? You sign your resignation letter, and at any point in time that the leader of the government has an issue with you and a problem, he doesn't have to ask you for your resignation.
Just put the date on
all
it.
He has to do date it and produce it.
That is true. That is true. But it's still possible. I think where we failed, because people are saying, well, the independents failed. What we failed to do is not stand for what the issues are. What we failed to do was to get over issues that we had before. And what you got to remember, it was not a majority independent group. There had to be a party involved some way, shape or form, because it was actually 9 independent members and 9 progressive, actually 10 party persons, 7 PPM, 3 CDP, and if you accept Tara's position as an independent, then it would be 9 independent members. So actually the party system still had the majority in this country, and in order to create a majority in the country, all the independents, even if they worked together, they had to go to some party person and say, come and join us. And there were some PPM persons who were almost there ready to come over. No, seriously. So we have to take that into consideration, that the circumstances that we believe in that the independents didn't get it done is not fully accurate, because we still needed party persons, as well as there were some problems with persons not getting over their differences for the country. So it's about not about independence, but about the maturity of the type of individuals understanding what will need to happen once you form the government.
Okay, Mr. Bryan, I want to thank you very much. I think we had a very, very lively show. I think it was very informative, and I believe that our listening and viewing audience will now have a better understanding of your thought process, your views of the future in terms of politics in the Cayman Islands. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are brothers and our sisters keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to the charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling Dreeny Manx at 12 noon for Talk Today. I believe Mr. Bryan wanted to get something very quickly.
I do very fast. The Georgetown Primary School is trying to raise $300 for their primary school. But if you care, if you have a couple of dollars, go down to the Georgetown Primary School and give them some money. They need to raise $300 by the end of today. Georgetown Central Scranton Committee is having a Mother's Day Sunday event. They need some help with food, drinks, and gifts for mothers. You can call Mr. Dale Ramon 916-1578 or Miss Christine Burke 916-1780 to assist them with any kind of funds to help them with that. Happy Mother's Day to everybody when it comes. Love you. Bye-bye.
Right, folks, have a great day. Take care. God bless.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates. Rotary Central, for more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. And Roper's Janitorial, complete janitorial service for commercial, industrial, and residential. They get the job done right every time.
Community radio with a different appeal. The voice of the people. Security through adversity. Stuck on you. Radio for all time.
You're listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.